We were just biding our time for this moment. Yes. How am I supposed to get back to my TBR when I just got this news? Oh my god. Hey, I'm Rachel if you're new here, and this is Let Me in the Library. I'm going to talk about my November TBR, which, yeah, I know it's partway through November, but there's an election going on, and there's a lot going on in life right now, so I hope that you can give me a little bit of forgiveness for being a bit late on this video, but hopefully this is early enough in the month that we could still talk about the things that I'm planning on reading in the month of November. So I did play my TBR game. If you have not watched my October TBR where I explain all of the rules, I will link that up in the cards so that you can see exactly how the game works. Essentially, I have a 20-sided dice and I roll it. Whatever number that it lands on, it corresponds to a certain prompt that I have written out ahead of time, and then that tells me what I should read for the month. Last month, I rolled 13 times, which, as I have realized, is a lot. So I only rolled 6 times this month. I have a number of other books that I really needed to read this month, so I am not trying to overwork myself. It's self-care time. If you are not already subscribed to my channel, you can do that down below, and I also have all of my socials linked down there in case you want to connect with me anywhere else, as well as my Amazon wishlist. So let's just get into the rolls. Okay, that's a 4, 16, 15, 20, 12, and 7. So first off, I did roll a 4, and for the prompt for a 4, it's to roll a 4-sided dice, and then whatever that lands on, it corresponds to the piles I have laid out in front of me, and that tells me what I have to read. This time I did not try to get too crazy. I only had one book in each pile, and that just told me what I had to read. So the book that I ended up with was To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. I'm very happy about this because I've been really wanting to pick this back up. I started this sometime around July, I believe, and it was so much fun, but I always do that thing where I take a book and I love it and then I don't read it, which isn't smart, but I just get so excited about it and I just covet it so much. But I'm ready to actually finish the book. I've been very excited about continuing with the story, and I think it has a lot of fantastic sci-fi elements that I really love. This book basically follows this group of astronauts who are out in space, and they are trying to discover different things on different worlds, which is not very uncommon at this point in life, but unfortunately for the people who go on these missions, because of the length of time that you're on the mission, you're kind of only stuck with these people for the rest of your life, and everyone that you knew when you come back home would already be very elderly or perhaps have passed away. And I actually really like the crew that we have here, and I'm very interested to see what's going to happen because they just started to, look at some specimens and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be really great. My next roll was a 7, and a 7 means that I have to read a nonfiction book. So I picked AOC, topical, right? AOC is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She is this wonderful congresswoman, and I think everybody's kind of in love with her, but I realized the other day, because I was trying to explain to my mother who AOC was, and I realized I don't know that much about her life outside of what I've seen. I know that she played Among Us. That's not a great descriptor for a congresswoman, so I wanted to learn more about her life, and I just saw this at the library and I thought it was a great opportunity to start learning more about her. The next roll that I got was a 12, which means I need to read a new-to-me author. So, the ultimate new-to-me author that I have been wanting to read for a very long time and have been putting off because I'm quite intimidated by the size of these books for the most part, but I figured, let's just go for it. I am going to read Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. This is a book that I actually was gifted for my birthday, and I'm very excited to actually dive into this book in particular because I've heard it's really great, and it's especially good if you really like action and adventure. I don't really know why. I feel like it gives me like Red Rising vibes. I feel like that's probably totally wrong, but that's always just the feeling I get whenever I see this book of like, it could be just like Red Rising, which I loved. Red Rising was really great for me because that was the first book I read after the Hunger Games that completely pulled me in, and I had to read the entire rest of the series right away. It was really great. So I'm hoping that Mistborn gives me that same feeling of excitement, of just wanting to completely devour a book. So I'm very excited about this, but also I'm not that good at reading physical books that are big, so this may carry over into December, but that's okay. What's it about? I literally don't know. Sometimes I worry that I'm not the hero everyone thinks I am. The philosophers assure me that this is the time, that the signs have been met, but I still wonder if they have the wrong man. So many people depend on me. They say I will hold the future, the entire world in my arms. When they see me, do they see a liar? I think that's why it kind of reminds me of Red Rising, because it's like that edginess that like Darrow had. Once a hero rose to save the world, he failed. For 1,000 years since, the world has been a wasteland of ash and mist. Mist! Ruled by the immortal emperor known as the Lord Ruler. What? That's her name? Lord Ruler? That's like your name is like President. What? Yet somehow hope survives, hope that dares to dream of ending the empire and defeating the Lord Ruler. I'm sorry. A new kind of uprising is being planned, one that depends on the cunning of a brilliant criminal mastermind. Oh, I like that. And the determination of an unlikely heroine, a teenage street urchin named Vin. When a hero rose to save the world and failed, can a young heroine succeed? Very excited to see what I think of this book. It's gonna be great. Next up, I had A15, which means that my cat picked the book for me.
Read, Sasha. Come on. Pick a book.
Yeah.
Really? You had to go for that book?
I actually ended up with New Waves by Kevin Yuen. I got this from a library haul a while ago, and I never actually picked it up, even though I was very excited about the premise of this one. So, I don't know, I was like a little bit salty that she picked this book because I just have so many other books that were more immediately on my radar, but at the same time, I was really excited when I first read the premise of this book, so it's probably a good idea that I actually read the books I'm excited about. What a concept, I know. I read this, I know what it's supposed to be, but I just don't want to get it wrong. Okay, there are these two people, Lucas and Margot are fed up. Margot's a brilliant programmer tired of being talked over as the company's sole black employee, and while Lucas is one of many agents at the firm, he's nearly invisible as a low-paid customer service rep. Together, they decide to steal their tech startup's user database in an attempt at revenge. The heist takes a sudden turn when Margot dies in a car accident, and Lucas is left reeling, wondering what to do with their secret, and wondering whether Margot's death was really an accident. When Lucas hacks into Margot's computer looking for answers, he is drawn into her private online life and realizes just how little he knew about his best friend. With a fresh voice, biting humor, and piercing observations about human nature, Kevin Yuen brings an insider's knowledge of the tech industry to this imaginative novel, a pitch-perfect exploration of race and startup culture, secrecy and surveillance, social media and friendship. New Waves asks, how well do we really know one another, and how do we form true intimacy and connection in a tech-obsessed world? True, okay? Do you know how many of my real-life friends know about my booktube? Not that many, okay? If you are watching this and you know me in real life, no you don't. No you didn't. You are not watching this right now. Next up, I got A16, which means that I had Twitter pick this book for me. And very immediately I got an answer on what I was supposed to read, and after the poll ended, there was a very obvious winner. The Empress of Salt and Fortune. I know that this is one of Tammy's favorite books, so I wanted to include it in the poll, and I kind of was really hoping it was going to win, so I'm very glad that it did. This is a super short novella. I didn't know how short this was when I kept seeing it on Goodreads all the time, and I actually think this might be one of the Goodreads Choice Awards nominees, I guess you would say. So I really don't know very much about it, but I do know it has Chinese fantasy stuff in it, which is cool. It's a feminist high fantasy and an indictment of monarchy. An evocative debut follows the rise of the Empress Inyo, who has very few resources and fewer friends. She's a northern daughter in a mage-made summer exile, but she will bend history to her will, bring down her enemies piece by piece. Tammy, is this just the Poppy War, but shorter? Is that why you love this book? I know Tammy has read this book like 5 times, so it's time that I read it at least once. The next roll I got was a 20, which means that I get to read my most anticipated book, and this time that is Kingdom of Copper. I know! Last time, in October, my most intimidating read was City of Brass, which is the prequel to this. Not anymore. I read City of Brass. I loved it. I went on a live show with Ansu for the Double Booked Book Club, and it was so much fun to read this book and then like just fan out about it with Ansu because we both loved the book. Now I finally get to read the second book, which I'm very excited about. I've heard it's the best book in the trilogy. I really love Nari, our main character. I really love Dara. Oh my god, I love Dara. I know he's a murderer, but what's your point? Anto and I had so many feelings about all the characters in this book and everything that went down, so definitely check out the live show because it was a really fun time. I'm not just saying that because I want to promo the thing, but honestly it was like a really fun time, so I would definitely recommend that you check it out. So that's it for my rolls, but of course, when I rolled 13 times last month, I have so many books that are left over from that, so let me just go through those because I am actually going to try to catch up, so to speak. And we'll see how many of these things that I just rolled for I have to carry over to December, but you know what? That's okay. We're not gonna stress ourselves out. It's gonna be fine. So first off, I had a book that Twitter had picked for me last month that I actually just finished, and it's The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. So I just finished this yesterday, and it was really, okay, I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was really great, but of course, when I posted on Twitter and said, hey, I gave this 4 stars, a couple people had some feelings. So we're actually going to have a live show to discuss The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. Basically, simps versus salty people. So it's going to be very exciting to talk about with everybody, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to do that on my channel near the end of November. Sorry, okay, I didn't even talk about what this book was about. Actually, this is a guy who keeps hopping bodies. He's in this weird situation where he's able to actually wake up in a different body and try to figure out who the murderer is of Evelyn Hardcastle. And there are other people who are also playing alongside him who are also able to solve this mystery, and whoever is able to solve it and bring the answer forward, they're able to escape this repetitive Groundhog's Day type thing. Another book that I had left over from October is Burn Our Bodies Down by Rory Power. I started this very recently, so I'm going to finish it very quickly in November. And basically this has a whole mother-daughter kind of thing where honestly, the mother's really emotionally abusive and the daughter is kind of used to it. The main character wants to discover more about her own lineage because she's only ever known her mother. She doesn't know anybody else in her family because it's only ever been the 2 of them. But when she goes back to that town to go find people, there is a murder and the person who died looks exactly like her, and she's found right on top of the body. So they're like, it was you. And she's like, no. Another one is Wicked As You Wish. This is another one that I had from October before, and I have also started it, so Wicked As You Wish is a fantasy book, which actually I'm really enjoying because it has an alternative history element to it as well. Magic has always been around, and it used to be known that it was only for nobles, but eventually people realized that anybody could use it. There was royalty in America. The American Revolution was also about magic, and that's not really like what the story's about. That's just sort of the context. But now in this present time, there was this kingdom of Avalon, but the Ice Queen took over and she kind of drove everybody out, and a lot of people were hiding as refugees and ended up kind of in the middle of America. So I think that the main cast is in Arizona right now, and they may be traveling back to Avalon to try to regain magic for everybody because where they are right now, there is no magic. Okay, I also need to read Authority. This would be the 2nd book in the Southern Reach trilogy. Basically, this is just my October TBR again. I'm sorry. Also, Vicious Spirits, the 2nd book for Wicked Fox. I am waiting for my hold to come in. I might just buddy read this with Rue because I think she just finished Wicked Fox recently and she really loved it. Has all those K-drama vibes, and Vicious Spirits follows different characters, but it has the same world that it's all set in. So I think that'll be interesting because I've heard it's actually even better than Wicked Fox. And another book that I have to read is The Slippery Slope. Ugh, yeah, I know. This is the buddy read that I've been doing with Aline from Pick Me Puff Reads, and we read every single book in a series of unfortunate events. Basically, month by month, we pick another book, but I feel like lately we've been a little bit late and kind of like slumping pretty hard, so our buddy reads kind of fall towards the end of the month, and as a result they carry over to the next month. So I need to read this. This is the 10th book, and then I also need to read this, which is the 11th book, The Grim Grotto.
Tra-la-la bam yay, tra-la-la bam yay.
He won?
Yes, who won today? Yay!
He won?
Yep.
Officially?
Yep.
270?
Yep. 274.
274?
He won.
Yes! We were just biding our time for this moment. Yes! How am I supposed to get back to my TBR when I just got this news? Oh my god. Okay, this is how we know that it's gonna be a great month. Okay, let's get back to the books. How am I even supposed to think about books right now? Oh my god. The next book that I have to read in the month of November is Love Stage Volume 1. This is a book that Lou picked for us for our little weeb club that we're reading. I don't really know that much about this book, but I do know that it follows these two boys who met when they were young, and I think they were filming something on set, and one of them was like the son of the director or something, and they just needed somebody to play a little girl, so he had to cross-dress and pretend to be a little girl. And now they meet again when they're older. I don't really know that much else about it, but I assume it's a romance, so that'll be interesting to read. And another book that I have to read is the picks for the Host Club. We have this monthly book club that we do with a couple of different friends that I have on BookTube, and every month we read the host's pick of books. We have popular manga and we have not so popular manga. So the popular manga picks are Tokyo Ghoul volumes 4, 5, and 6, because we read 1, 2, and 3 last month. Rest assured, not every month we're going to be reading Tokyo Ghoul, but we were so into it and we had like this whole philosophical discussion, so we wanted to continue with the series. So we're going to be reading volumes 4, 5, and 6 of Tokyo Ghoul, and we'll also be reading volume 1 of Devil's Line, which I believe is kind of a Tokyo Ghoul-ish type story if it were about vampires, and that's going to be on Preet's channel later this month. So I will put the date and the link to the live show when it becomes available in the description down below so that you can join us for that discussion. It'll be a lot of fun. Speaking of book clubs, we also have the Winers Book Club pick. This is going to be Legendborn by Tracy Dion. This is a very exciting book pick because number 1, it's going to be on my channel, and number 2, we have some special guests that'll be joining us with the discussion. So we're going to have Lois from Lochan Reads, and we'll also have Bree from the Locked Booktician, and they will be joining the original hosts with myself on my channel later on in this month on November 21st. There's this young black woman who ends up going to the school, and I think that there are these different people who are related to King Arthur or have some kind of magic, and they are called Legendborns. So I assume that she's going to find out that she is a Legendborn, or else that there is like some dark secret at this place that she needs to uncover. So I think it's going to be really cool to read about. I'm really loving the fact that we're seeing a lot more people of color in a magical setting, and that this is a very popular book. This is a debut novel, but I'm really loving that there are so many people who are really interested in this book right now, so I think it'll be a really cool read to try out and talk about in the book club. Once again, I will have all the information for that live show in the description down below. Very close to the end now. There are a couple books that I wanted to read just because there were holds that came in, or there was a read-along going on, so I also wanted to read The Titan's Curse, which is the 3rd book in the Percy Jackson series. There's a Percy Jackson read-along going on right now, hosted by one of my friends, Nitty, so I wanted to check that out. I didn't really like the second book very much, but I did want to continue with the series, so hopefully I'll get to that in November. If I don't, no sweat, it's fine. We won the presidency, so nothing even matters anymore. I also want to read the very controversial book right now, A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. There were some problematic things that were going on in the book as far as the way that the author described locks and made them sound like really terrible in this school setting because bugs lay eggs in your hair or something like that. And I don't really like that, but I didn't buy the book, and I don't really want to support an author if they are problematic, but I also don't necessarily never want to give a book a chance because I've heard bad things about it. So I want to kind of form my own opinion about how the book is. So I never really got to read a lot of magical school books. So I think with Legendborn and with A Deadly Education, that might be also more on the dark academia side. That would be an interesting thing to try out. And I think it's also appealing to me because it is kind of one of those death game settings, because it seems like everybody who's in the school is literally just trying to survive. Like, it's not even about your grades, it's just make it to graduation and don't die, because I guess creatures are after all these kids, so we'll see. And the last one is One by One by Ruth Ware. I have a complicated relationship with Ruth Ware because I don't like any of her books, with the exception of like 2. And I just really don't love her books because I just feel like they're so overhyped for what they are, because they are really just okay or bad. I don't understand how these are always like the book recommended as like the summer book you have to pick up, or the thriller that will give you chills, and it's like, this really wasn't that good, but I can't stop reading them. I love them, but I hate them. So I wouldn't necessarily say that this is going to be a hate read, but I always have to read all of her books. So I'm going to be reading One by One, which is her newest book that just came out. I want to not be biased and say that I'm not going to like it, but I do know that this is also like a very wintry setting because I think there are a bunch of people who get stuck in a cabin somewhere, which is literally a Shari Lapina book that I already read and wasn't good. But we'll see. I'm going to read this, and we will see if I maintain that same opinion I have about Ruth Ware, or maybe this will be one of those books that surprised me. So we will see. We don't know. That's the point of a TBR. Okay, so those are all the books that I'm going to read in the month of November, possibly if they don't move over to December. 22 books. Okay, that's not that bad. It's not that good, but it's not that bad. So we will see. I also probably want to pick up another volume of Promised Neverland, but we'll just keep that up in the air. That's just between you and me. Thanks so much for watching. This is pretty chaotic. I'm just really excited that Joe Biden won. Oh my god. I haven't been happy for 4 years and 4 days. Oh my god. So I finally get to be happy again. This is so exciting. Alright, anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'm Rachel. This is Let Me in the Library. Once again, you can see my socials and you can subscribe down below if you're interested. Thank you for voting. Thank you so much for voting. I'll see you next time.